That's right. Serial meeting, she says. So even if it's somebody else who tries to develop the collective concurrence to let folks know what's going to happen and what the county's going to present, no, that's a violation. Okay, here's a big one. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. Conferences, all right? So we hear this every year, and some county person comes up with it. I don't think they know what they're talking about. I doubt that they've talked to their county council, and I don't think that they've read the Brown Act. Because one of the exceptions is for everybody on the advisory committee or everybody on the legislative body to be able to go to a conference. Okay? If you got a 6-person quorum, you don't have to limit the people that go to the conference to a 5-person quorum. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the next thing. Community meetings. Yes, you can have your whole advisory committee go to another community meeting or go to a board of supervisors meeting or something like that. It's just that during that time you have to participate in the community meeting. You can't be doing the equivalent of developing a collective consensus. You're there to participate in the community meeting. Social or ceremonial occasions, a cocktail party or something like that. Just don't huddle 6 of you together and make a decision. Okay? That's all no-no stuff. And then they say the standing committees are one of the exceptions too. Well, actually, it's the ad hoc committee. Attendance at quorums or conferences. That's the next slide here. A quorum of an advisory committee is permitted to attend a conference open to the public. That's one of the reasons these conferences used to be only for advisory committee members and providers. And when that question came up from Orange County, we said, fine, we'll open it to the public. Anybody can come. We'll be happy to take your money. You want to sign up? You want to be part of our conference? Wonderful. We're glad you're interested. And we'd love to have you here. You're welcome. SECA conferences are open to the public if it involves a discussion of issues of general interest. The Brown Act, okay? Or how do you get people out of nursing homes? Those are issues of general interest. Provided that a majority of the members, now here's again, you can't have a meeting while you're here. You can't sit a majority of the members down and talk about something that has to do with your advisory committee. That's a no-no. So forget about that. Just come here and do the conference stuff. Don't have a little side meeting where you're going to get ready for your next meeting. I gave you the citation on that too. So when somebody says that to you, you say, well, would you please go look at Government Code Section so-and-so? And let's talk about it. All right, I'm moving on. Actually, what time is my time supposed to end here? Do you remember? Is it 11? Is it noon or 11:45? It's noon? Okay. All right, so I got 15 minutes. So here we go. We're talking about meetings now. Notice and agenda requirements. So one of the big things about a Brown Act body, like an advisory committee, there's very specific requirements for noticing the meeting and what you put in the agenda, because that's how the public finds out what's going to go on at the meeting. So one is 3-day notice, 72 hours. 2, you have to tell in the agenda the time and location of the meeting, obvious. 3, a brief general description of each item of business. Now, basically, they're not asking for some kind of a treatise here or anything. Generally, they say it doesn't have to exceed 20 words, but something, some description that's going to give the public adequate information about what you guys are going to talk about. That's what's in there. Now, I don't think that you all, as advisory committee members, are going to be worried so much about what the agenda has to say. But as an advisory, because you're not putting it out, but as an advisory committee member, or maybe you're the chair of the advisory committee, you're working with whoever, somebody from the county or somebody from the public authority or whatever to come up with the agenda. That's part of your job then. If you're part of creating the agenda, you need to know that it has to be a description that people understand what's going to go on and what you guys are going to talk about. Has to be, if you have folks with disabilities, has to be an accessible format. Now, they're not responsible for guessing what all the different disabilities might be. if you have a disability, you have to ask for it in an accessible format. So if you have a hearing impairment, you can get a sign language person there. If you have a sight impairment, you can get somebody to read it to you or some way that's going to satisfy so that you can participate in that meeting. Whether you're a member of the committee or whether you're a member of the public who wants to come to the meeting, you have to let them know in advance. Then they'll take care of you, or at least that's what the law says. Yes. Go ahead and ask your question. I'll repeat it for everybody.
If you have a hearing impairment and ask for sign language and it is not available, does that mean the meeting cannot go forward?
I'm not going to say yes or no to that. It doesn't say that the meeting can't go forward. It says that you have to accommodate people with, to make it accessible to them. Has that happened to you? No. Let me repeat the lady's question. If you have a hearing impairment and you ask for a sign language interpreter and you're told that that they're not available, well, this is a county system. Look, they know about this. They have Board of Supervisors meetings. They know the deal. But you have to give them plenty of notice because they have to go out and hire somebody to come and do that. They don't just show up at the meeting. They're very expensive, sign language people. And so they have to have a reasonable amount of time to do that. But if you want to go to those meetings, you have a hearing impairment, you just go tell the clerk of the Board of Supervisors. Don't stand up in the meeting to do it, but just go tell the clerk that sits there at those meetings, I need a sign language interpreter, and I'm going to be at the such and so meeting. And that's their job to get them. If they say it's not available, then there's a problem. Telephone access. Now, one of the things that happens, here's a reality of IHSS advisory committees. A majority of the members need to be current or former users of personal assistance services, which means you're going to have folks with disabilities. That's the point of the advisory committee. The people who are affected by the program have a say in the program. Okay, what happens? Lots of advisory committees have a hard time getting a quorum because folks with disabilities tend to have more health problems, they have more difficulty getting there, maybe their attendant didn't show up, or they had a bad day, or a whole list of things. You all know what I'm talking about. Everybody here knows what I'm talking about. So one of the things when I was the director of the Marin Public Authority to deal with that is we said, all right, you can call in by telephone. You as a board member can call in by telephone. But there's a whole process that you have to go through in order for that to happen, in order for you to do that in compliance with the Brown Act. And some of what I'm going to say is going to sound silly to you, but this is the rule. I didn't make it up. I'm just telling you what it is. The location of each remote site. So if somebody's going to call from their house, the location, that's called a remote site. Yeah, I would. If you'd give me some of that, I'd appreciate it. The remote site has to be listed on the agenda. So you got to give the address of the board member who wants to be able to call in, because that's a remote site. Secondly, you have to just basically follow all the Brown Act rules. Thank you so much. So that means that you have to post a notice at the remote site. The